Welcome to day 2 of the Pathways to Hope Conference. I hope you were inspired by the plenary sessions from Dr. Shirley Holloway and Dr. Thomas Ensel, as well as the many workshops and opportunities for fellowship yesterday. Today, we have a whole lot more coming your way. This conference is a chance to build grassroots movements to help engage faith communities, mental health providers, NAMI members, and other community partners in building a sustainable community coalition. It reminds me of an old African proverb I find myself quoting often. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. To meet the growing mental health needs of our communities and create long-term sustainable systemic change, it will take all of us working together. The need is too great to work in silos. We cannot meet the demand alone. Millions of people are affected by mental health conditions every year. There's just so much need we can't outrun, and that need has only increased with the mental health impact of the pandemic. We will need a collective, collaborative effort to accomplish necessary progress to achieve a better world for people everywhere living with mental health conditions. It will take tenacity, because sometimes the speed of change can feel very slow, and it will take creativity, because sometimes hope can show up in the most unsuspecting places. We have to meet people where they are, not where we want them to be. That's why including faith communities in promoting mental wellness is so critical. And it's why to truly have an impact, we must think beyond traditional partnerships. For example, NAMI teamed up with the Confess Project to promote conversations about mental health in Black communities through barbershops. I had a chance to go to Atlanta and speak to a few people on the ground. Check it out.
Check it out. Check it. Check it out. Check it.
What NAMI's mantra is, we meet you where you are. Not where we want you to be, but where you are. So how do you feel when you sit in the barber's chair in terms of interacting with your barber and their interest in knowing how you're doing?
It's not a lot of places where black men can go when you talk about mental health. So to be in a space where you could be heard, you could be seen, and it's just a place of rest and relaxation.
And in 2007, I was shot in both legs during an ambush by a sniper. And when I came back home to Rochester, I spent a lot of time in my barbershop talking about what I went through with guys who I've known pretty much my entire life.
It may be something we're navigating through. It may be some depression, some anxiety, but we don't want our friend to see us as being vulnerable, as seeing us as being, I think the other word is weak. So the stigma continues to grow. So how do you guys help us with that?
It'll have to be safe. What says here in this chair stays here. And I think that's why a lot of people open up to barbers, because barbers got a story too, every last one of us in here.
As a black man, I wear my mask every day. But in the barbershop, I can unveil that mask and be the authentic self that I need to be. These barbers, they have the connect. They got the keys to the streets. You know what I mean? So it's so important that that relationship is intact with the client and the barber, but it's also very important that organizations like NAMI and the KFS Project are on the front lines as well in the community, meeting people where they are.
Check it out. Check it.
It's going to take all of us thinking and doing differently to meet the needs of some of our most historically underserved communities. I want to encourage each of you to think about other non-traditional partnerships you may be able to engage. It will look different in every community. So consider, where do people in your community gather? Maybe that means building partnerships with barbershops or nail salons. Maybe it means building partnerships with fraternities or sororities. Maybe it means partnerships with professional organizations and associations, or even a local restaurant. Every community will need to survey its own landscape to see what collaborations will make sense, keeping in mind the diversity that exists in all of our communities. Addressing the mental health crisis in the U.S. will come one innovative partnership, one creative collaboration, one community at a time. Yesterday, Dr. Tom Insel led off the conference speaking about how living together in community is a powerful antidote for people living with a mental health diagnosis. His focus being on the 3 Ps: people, place, and purpose. Being in relationship with others, finding the places where we live that promote healing and recovery, and finding a purpose in our daily life is essential to being part of a healing community. Over the course of this weekend at Pathways to Hope, I hope you take heart in the community around you. I hope you form new relationships and discover ways to work with others to advocate for change. I hope you reignite your faith, reignite your purpose, and reignite your hope. I hope you are inspired. I hope you are reminded that no matter what you're going through, you are not alone. Before we move on to the next part of our program, take a moment to watch this short preview of NAMI's free program for mental wellness in Latinx communities, Compartiendo Esperanza.
Compartiendo esperanza. Es interesante esa palabra. Es lo que tú debes de hacer como ser humano.
So the first thing that came to my mind when I heard Compartiendo Esperanza was really like a return to roots, being reminded of that and being reminded of who we are, because it can be easy to feel hopeless. It can be easy to feel like things are against me and this is not going to work and here are all the reasons it won't work.
I was involved in a conversation recently where it was Latinos talking about the term Latinx. I want to be able to identify myself, because it seems more like you want to know what I am more than you want to know who I am. And that impacts our mental health.
When it comes to like even some of your classmates, some of our students that we know personally, the reason why they don't reach out for help or they feel like they can't is because of fear.
Because you have that idea, I could do it by myself. I don't need any help. Like it really took me to be at rock bottom and like I really don't have anyone I need help.
How do you deal with being in that situation? Like you're the one that needs help.
I don't deal with that. I rarely let people help me.
Tú piensas que tú estás solo, pero no estás. Tú estás en un planeta lleno de seres humanos.
No one's going to replace dad. He's always going to be dad. But you got men in your life that love you, and your dad is proud of you.
And reminding our young people who they are and who their parents and grandparents have been. It's about just making sure that isn't lost on them.
I've never met him, but I know that he loves you beyond anything, more than anything in this world, that he would give anything up to be here with you right now.
Comparte esperanza. Y ese puede ser el estado de este mundo. Todo se puede cambiar con compartiendo esperanza. Porque tú tienes el poder con una palabra y a veces eso es todo lo que necesitas.
Morning. My name is Doug Beach, and I'm the chairperson of Pathways to Hope in San Antonio. I'm also the NAMI San Antonio board president and the chairperson of the National NAMI FaithNet Advisory Group, and I also serve as the board vice president of Pathways to Promise. NAMI FaithNet is a major sponsor of Pathways to Hope. This morning, I want to share a little bit about how NAMI FaithNet came into being and where it's headed. And in a few moments, you'll hear from Paul Liu of NAMI Orange County, who will present a Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of NAMI FaithNet and Pathways to Hope. For many of you, the name FaithNet is new. But for the past 25 years, NAMI FaithNet has been NAMI's outreach to faith communities across the country. Just as NAMI's mission is to educate, advocate, and provide support for families and individuals impacted by mental illness, NAMI FaithNet's mission has been to work with faith communities to better equip them to be part of a community of healing in our large and small cities and towns across the United States. NAMI believes in a holistic approach to mental health care, which includes body, mind, and spirit. And it's been these two efforts, equipping faith communities to be part of a community of healing and recognizing the role of faith and spirituality in our mental health, that has been the focus of NAMI FaithNet. So when did this outreach by NAMI to faith communities begin? The movement began in the 1980s when a number of religious denominations began to develop their own mental health ministries. Through Dr. Gunnar Christensen and other early advocates, collaborations began with groups such as Pathways to Promise to work with early denominational supporters in the U.S. They included people like the Reverend Craig Rennebaum in Seattle and Jennifer Schifrin to advocate for a greater role of faith communities in building more welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged congregations. In 1991, NAMI Orange County, Gunnar's home affiliate, conducted a nationwide study to determine the level of engagement by faith communities in providing mental health support. Over 1,100 groups were canvassed, and across the country, only 17 responded with any kind of program. In 1998, Gunnar Christensen began using the name FaithNet to describe a movement among NAMI affiliates to work with faith communities. And over the next 15 years, it was Gunnar, along with people like the Reverend Susan Gregg Schroeder from NAMI San Diego, and Carol Wills from NAMI Indianapolis, and Sister Nancy Keogh at the Harvard Medical School, and many others who kept NAMI FaithNet moving forward. And recently, with the support of Adrian Kennedy, the past national NAMI president, and Dan Gillison, the current CEO of NAMI, we've arrived at this point where NAMI affiliates across the country are part of this event, Pathways to Hope, which brings faith communities, people with lived experience, family members and caregivers, educators, social workers, mental health professionals, law enforcement, and the judiciary together to begin building healing communities. Today, 17 NAMI state organizations and affiliates throughout the country are hosting their own Pathways to Hope event by joining together during these plenary events and then hosting their own local workshops. When Gunnar worked to breathe life into FaithNet, he intended that people of all faith traditions would participate. FaithNet exists in NAMI affiliates throughout the U.S. and often works with local interfaith alliance groups. As NAMI works to become more culturally competent, it is also working to become more inclusive and to recognize that body, mind, and spirit includes your faith tradition and your view of spirituality. Today, we're here to award Dr. Gunnar Christensen a Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of NAMI and Pathways to Promise, two organizations that Gunnar was instrumental in providing leadership and support for. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from Paul Liu, the NAMI California Board Vice President, the NAMI Orange County FaithNet Coordinator, and a member of our national NAMI FaithNet Advisory Group. Paul is carrying on the work that Gunnar began in NAMI Orange County over 40 years ago. I want to thank everybody for being part of Pathways to Hope, and shortly you'll hear from Paul Liu. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Liu. I am a member of FaithNet at NAMI National. I'm also the FaithNet Coordinator for NAMI Orange County in California. And lastly, I'm Vice President of the NAMI California Board of Directors. And today we have the honor of introducing you all to Susan Christensen. And Susan, we really want to thank you and Gunnar so much for all of the contributions and all the hard work that you've done throughout the years and receiving this Lifetime Achievement Award. Tell us what inspired you and Gunnar to create FaithNet.
Well, it came about through a lot of different situations, but the main one was that 40 years ago, our son developed signs of serious mental illness, and we were just desperate for some help. And it seemed to be a spiritual problem because he was continually preaching to us. And so I first went to my senior pastor, and he listened to our struggle with our now missing son. And his advice was to go home and pray, which of course I did, but that didn't really make a difference in what we were going through. So I was also attending a women's Bible study, and at the end of it, the leader asked were there any prayers. And so I thought, well, this is my chance. I am going to speak up. And I said, my son is in a psychiatric hospital, and I'm waiting to hear that they have a bed for him, and I need prayers. And I got them. So eventually, at the time, there was so much stigma and fear about mental illness that this seemed to open up an area in our church where maybe it was okay to look into it and to see if we couldn't get started with some programs or to help families survive such a devastating occurrence.
When did you and Gunnar connect with NAMI?
Well, we really didn't know what was wrong with our son, and so I went from counselor to counselor and did anything I could to try to figure out how we could get him some help. And at one point, a counselor told me about NAMI, and he thought that maybe we were dealing with schizophrenia. So we went to NAMI, Orange County, and were just amazed at the reception and the wonderful support they offered. And while there, we took their family to family group, and we just made some wonderful friends that are still our very supportive friends.
So, Susan, tell us how FaithNet got started.
Once our pastor could see that mental illness was not just a devastating issue for Gunnar and I, but for also many families in the congregation, he allowed Gunnar to talk him into organizing a 3-day conference at our church. We had materials from NAMI, of course, handouts, and we had speakers, and we had it was just an absolutely successful meeting. And it was so terrific that our pastor allowed us to then organize for a Sunday night weekly support group for anyone in our congregation, and it was advertised for the community. And during this time, NAMI National was operating an existing support program called Religious Outreach to the Faith Community. So Gunnar and I were getting involved with NAMI National, and we went to the conferences and got and worked at the tables, which was a place where people at the conference could come and pick up all sorts of wonderful brochures and materials, and ours was non-denominational spiritual material. So one day, Gunnar put a clipboard out with a pen on it and a piece of paper, and he offered to email information to anyone who wanted it. And from this simple email sign-up sheet, Gunnar connected a network of dedicated people already doing fantastic local work. He began writing a monthly email providing faith community connection material to eventually a list that grew to 4,000 people across the country. Gunnar personally best described his passion as explaining to the secular community the importance of faith in rehabilitation from mental illness, and to the faith community the scientific aspects of mental illness.
Tell us about Hope's Nest.
Well, after taking FaithNet nationally, Gunnar and I circled back to our home congregation, and along with some other people who were very committed and interested in doing it, we started a support group called Hope's Nest. And it was a support group for people with mental health issues. And we hold a meeting every month at our church. We provide a lunch, and we have some Bible study, and we have a lot of sharing how they're doing, what they've done this past month that's been helpful, not helpful, and we do a lot of praying. And once a year, we host a huge Christmas party for them, which is just wonderful, with Santa Claus and everything. One day, a newcomer that came to Hope's Nest with mental illness told us that he had been in a previous church where he explained to the pastor just how difficult his life was with his mental illness. And his pastor told him to go home and pray more. Well, I can tell you, he's now a part of our group.
What do you think would be something of interest about Gunnar that people probably don't know?
Well, this is hard to talk about right now, but something that one of our children said about Gunner was that there was never anyone he met that he didn't like. And also, he left his very busy practice, medical practice, and took up making ceramic pottery, and he's loved it. And his pots are all over our property. They're wonderful, just wonderful.
You want to tell us something more about that painting behind you?
Well, when we were just getting started and going from conference to conference and setting up our table along with the religious outreach network from NAMI National, we needed something to catch people's eyes. And so I had done a project with quilt making at our local NAMI with our group, and making this was an outcropping of that for me. And that was all of a sudden, it was a net. And I think that Gunner decided that that was an appropriate name for his ministry, and all his efforts was Faith Net.
Again, thank you so much. Thank you and Gunner for everything that you've done. And, for you and Gunner to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award. And in many ways, many of us wouldn't be doing the things that we do and doing the ministries that we have without you and Gunner getting this whole thing started. So thank you so much for doing that.
Grand Rising, and welcome to day 2 of the Pathways to Hope Conference. I hope this conference has provided rich conversations and good information. My name is Dawn Brown, and I'm the Director of Cross-Cultural Innovation and Engagement. And today I'm excited to share 2 initiatives with you. Sharing Hope and Compartiendo Esperanza are initiatives relaunched by NAMI and designed to destigmatize mental wellness and create pathways to healing in the Black African immigrant and Hispanic Latinx immigrant communities. And it's rooted in collective community wisdom and empowerment. Our goal is to empower communities to speak openly about health and wellness and identify ways to create healing and wholeness. We do this by first sharing experiences, identifying signs and symptoms of mental health challenges, destigmatizing the conversation, and sharing tools such as how to find the right therapist or creating a support squad. As you know, lack of information surrounding mental health conditions can prevent individuals from gaining access to much needed support and help. And this is especially true for Black and Brown communities. Sharing Hope and Compartiendo Esperanza seeks to change that. We understand that we cannot help without first understanding the specific needs. So we're committed to listening and exploring the journey of mental health and mental wellness through intentional conversations, storytelling, and discussions that are often prompted by videos on the following topics. We have youth and mental wellness, community leaders and mental wellness, and then Black families and mental wellness. We also have the same for Compartiendo Esperanza. We have youth and mental wellness, community leaders, and Hispanic Latino families. And we have more topics that are coming soon as we partner with the Confess Project and explore our expansion into barbershops and beauty salons. This innovative initiative is an opportunity to hold healing spaces for, by, and about the Black African immigrant and the Hispanic Latino immigrant communities. And we do this by grounding the space in music, drumming, prayers. We might pour out libations or share important information to ground that space before we open in such engaging dialogue. We're also going to be expanding this initiative into the Alaska Native and Indigenous community, along with the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, the deaf and hard of hearing, and the LGBTQIA+ communities. I have to say we are so grateful you'll be joining us in ensuring our communities feel welcome, respected, and heard, especially when working with NAMI. Please take a moment to watch the following videos from our series. The first video is Sharing Hope in the Black Family and Mental Wellness. And immediately following that video is Compartiendo Esperanza, Community Leaders in Mental Wellness. And this conversation, we hope, doesn't stop here. We hope that we continue to create spaces for community and conversation. And that if you wanted to learn a little bit more, please visit www.nami.org or reach out to me at don.brown@nami.org to set up a conversation facilitator training or community conversation. We also have and are partnering with 2 consultants, Laura Martinez, who is helping us with Compartiendo Esperanza, and Irma Sinclair, who's helping us with Sharing Hope. And together, we can really create a social movement, the one that Tom Insel speaks of, and or, as the femme fatale so eloquently stated, we can stand up for love. We can ask ourselves, are we doing enough? So please enjoy the conference, and thank you so much for watching these videos. Have a great day.
What is it?
No, on the other
Shiny?
side. Yeah.
This is from a chapstick. I feel like it's a thin layer more laying on.
It looks fine.
If it looks off, I'm blaming you, mother.
Yeah, it's better.
Hello.
Ooh.
My name is Layla.
My name is Connie.
My name is Courtney. This is my beautiful mother and my beautiful daughter. And I am a mother. I am a woman learning how to heal. Yeah. And I'm glad to be here.
This is 3 generations, right?
If I wait for my trauma to be completely gone, I'll never live.
Figure it out. So for you, Mom, I wonder, how did you view helping us talk about our emotions? And I'm really asking just because I may not remember certain things, but what was that like when we were growing up?
It wasn't forthright in the sense of, I need to do this. So it wasn't this just, hey, we need to gather around and sit and just talk. I probably saw you more as a challenge, because it's for you to question something, and you didn't necessarily you did. You just had questions about things, which is necessary, but I saw that as, she's not cooperating with whatever I'm struggling with, so therefore I need to handle it this way. Part of me now, I regret it. But then I'm learning, like, it's not only okay, it's necessary.
It's interesting. You made the comment of saying, if we question things, it was like disrespect, and not with you, but just in general in the Black community. It's such a toxic way of thinking. It's been so unhealthy, and creates these unhealthy dynamics in families, to the point that you have a bunch of adults living as children on the inside because we haven't been able to have those kinds of conversations. But you don't realize until you're a parent how much the stuff you've gone through immediately comes out. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm doing the exact same thing that my mom did to me that I hated.
That's right.
And there's a level of humility that has to come in when we talk about mental health and emotions, because we're not going to understand everybody and why they feel the way that they do. And that's the hardest thing that I think that's been taken from the Black community, is our right to feel.
It was really helpful when we talked earlier about mental health. I've really been thinking about it, and it's one thing to talk about it and intentionally, but then when life shows up and then it hits you about what you said, you don't want it to be like just for the purpose of a teachable moment, and not to put it into practice. Raised so regimented, everything was, and yet I didn't necessarily like that, but it's interesting how I didn't like it, but it became a part of who I was, but yet who I didn't want to be, it's deep.
Because I think in your case, right, you figure that stuff out later down the line.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So
That's
really,
good.
I mean, it's harder for seasoned individuals to kind of separate the two. Me, I have an opportunity to kind of do it a little bit earlier, and then we have this one, who has the opportunity to not even have it as a part of a problem.
3, 2, 1.
Kids are the most resilient when it comes to trauma. And they find ways to be happy, even in the midst, because she's, you know, this pandemic has been a lot.
Have you ever like looked at a picture and remembered exactly where you were at that time emotionally? Thinking about mental health and how happy we were in these pictures, but I remember the day before and when I got there, I was not in that space. I was not happy, struggling with my emotions and feeling stifled with sharing how I felt. And I share this because I think we as Black people and people in general have to remember mental health and emotional healing is a journey. And it's not all going to be okay all the time. Like, I feel like that was one moment where I felt like, just let it go for now. It's okay. You can handle it. You'll deal with it. It matters. Have fun. And I was able to let go of it and just have fun. And these smiles were authentic. Yeah. They remind me that healing is a journey. Yeah. And there are great moments along the way. Doesn't mean we didn't all have our own stuff we're still thinking about, but I'm grateful we took these. I'm grateful we have them.
You all learned on your individual journeys. It wasn't nourished with your parents, but you all learned the importance of that, and I'm so glad for it. I'm glad. I would have liked to have been able to, and that's the reason why I'll pour it on her now.
Yeah, but you know, the past, I mean, it is what it is, but
I know.
Knowing that you can still move forward, you can still progress. If I could give any advice to Black families, be kind to yourself. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a child, be intentional with explaining how you feel instead of blaming. The only way we're like taught how to express our emotions is when we're angry, and so it's automatically coming at somebody else, even though they may be the reason. It never helps you to get to the source of what's going on inside. And the more you ask, you really start to understand what's going on underneath the surface. It's hard to start a healing process if you really don't understand how you feel. And that's where the arguments come, which is why I think Black families, we can't ever get to the healing portion because we're so busy fighting each other instead of having empathy for each other and recognizing that we're all hurting because of all different reasons.
Each generation is being taught different things. So I also see the importance for families to embrace and acknowledge and even celebrate in the moment whatever somebody else is feeling. Encourage them to talk and just embrace whatever they feel and don't take it personally because it's never meant to be personal.
You don't have to know it all. You don't have to, it's just healing to be able to have those kinds of conversations and acknowledging it. Half the problems would stop if we just acknowledge what happened as real. That's why I said be kind to yourself, because you're going to mess up and you're going to have moments, and because restraint, especially when you're triggered, is hard. But I think if we're kind to ourselves, we don't give up, no matter how hard it gets. Take a break, we don't give up. We as Black families, we as a Black community, we start getting the healing that our ancestors didn't get. We're doing it for them, we're doing it for us, and now that we have the freedom to do so, ridding ourselves of the generational curses and the cultural curses that have been placed on us, that we've inhabited as like, this is who we are. No, we can get rid of that. So that would be my prayer and words of love to Black families, because this is some real stuff.
Hi, my name is Alicia Spurlar. If I had to capture my why, I think the easy answer is the kids and the future.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eddie Collazo. The reason I do what I do is because people often talk about second chances. And I think in the community I come from, oftentimes folks didn't have a first chance. And so I do what I do because people deserve a first chance.
My name is Pastor Eunice Sanchez. I love the people, and there's a need. I believe God has called me to this, and just to be a voice and hopefully bring some hope, some change into our community. Brought back a memory. I remember hearing, that's just in your head. You need to get over stuff and just keep it moving. It wasn't taken seriously. Mental health, what is that? Are you kidding me? We don't have time for that. Or it's a spiritual thing, just pray it away. And even though I believe in the power of prayer, absolutely. But God made us a community, so we could connect, so we could hear each other, so we could support each other, help each other through things.
I think it really ranges how mental health is defined. We have a variety that goes from I'm not crazy to it's real and it's an actual need. And the exciting part for us is that it's real contingency is growing. And I think that's part of what's come out of this pandemic, right? Acknowledging that this is something real and it's just as real and important as physical health, even though we can't always see it in the same way. It's not always as visible. But I would say that even in my work in the Latino community, you do see a shift in respecting and honoring the fact that mental health is something that we need to be paying attention to.
I think that we're beginning to expand our definition of what mental health is. Growing up, hearing, tengo los nervios malos, my nerves are bad. And it's about the stress of, being a mom, about raising a family, of being the rock. And men didn't talk about it because it was always assumed you're already the rock, right? But I think we're expanding our definition to include things that cause us stress, because when those things aren't addressed, they can result in more serious challenges.
I agree with both of you, but I've also seen coming to a point where there is anger because we didn't ask to be put in this position. I'm a second generation here, so I never really lived on the island. So going back to it, I was called certain names, if you will, even if it's joking. So it puts you in a place where you don't belong here and you don't belong there. So even as a teenager, the grumbling started, There was a time I went into to enlist, and you look at this happens all the time. You look at the list. What do you consider yourself? And they only gave me 2 categories. I literally put in there, I'm a Latina woman. And then I put Hispanic because somebody told me, don't write that because you can get people nervous.
I think it's important to understand colonization has definitely had an impact, I think, on our day-to-day. I was involved in a conversation recently where it was Latinos talking about the term Latinx and whether who of us embraced that term or didn't embrace it, why we didn't. And the challenge that I saw with that term is the same challenge I saw with the term Latino, Hispanic, and the 4-letter word that we, as Latinos have heard. And it's that I want to be able to identify myself, because it seems more like you want to know what I am more than you want to know who I am. Mm-hmm. And who I am is more important than what I am. And if you look at me and you endeavor to find out who I am, you allow me to be a whole individual. And when what I am is more important, that affects who I am able to be. And that impacts our mental health. That affects our mental health.
You make great points, Eddie. And as you were speaking, one of the things that I thought of was, which I'm sure many of us have had this experience,
we're between two worlds, right? And so in ways we have our families and we have our culture and we have those things that we want to please our parents for and that we want to live up to, right? That we've expected and come to expect just growing up in the way that we have. And then we have this other world, and they're often in contrast. They don't necessarily align with each other. But I think when we speak to mental health, some of the challenges that our young people and all people probably face is that I want to please both. Teetering that line can certainly impact somebody's mental health, right? Like, what am I doing, and when am I fully, and to speak to Eddie's point, when am I fully authentic?
You're talking about culturally, we're very different. The other thing is linguistically, and oftentimes there's this idea that if you don't speak English, that you are not intelligent. Lack of mastery of the English language is equated with a lack of intelligence, and it's not true. It's not true. And so I think we have to value our intelligence in the way it comes, and not let people tell us because of your culture you're less than, because of your language you're less than.
Yes, there's richness in everything. Understanding your background, where you come from, and then getting excited about who you really are. Let's change the perspective. Let's really celebration of who we are as a people. Compartiendo esperanza. I've seen it. I remember when I started pastoring, and I remember struggling with the fact that the role that I had accepted in that community, it was difficult. I mean, you're talking about helping all types of folks, being able to sit and help with someone with challenges, some type of addiction, or with moms or anyone. Dads would come in and say, look, I need this help, how can I, it wouldn't matter. Just the fact that I was able to help, to spend time with folks, even if I didn't see quote unquote a change, what other people would look at and say, that's not successful. Yeah, I saw success. I saw people communicating. I saw people, at least a desire. And sometimes hope is just helping people see a glimpse of what is at their disposal and the gifts that they have. When you start pointing out, when you start discussing, I've had women going, I don't know, and just showing them a different way, and their eyes just coming alive. I mean, I've seen that in students, I've seen that in people.
That's an element that we need in order to have hope. We have to love our communities more. We have to love our families more. And we have to love ourselves more. In order to have that hope, there has to be some love there. Right away, I thought of Grandma. There was a saying, if there was food in the house and somebody showed up and she hadn't planned for all these people to show up, she would say, no hay mucho, pero hay para todos. There isn't a lot, but there's enough for everybody.
And that's a strength. That's a beautiful thing. And so relative to mental health, because it's a newer conversation and because maybe people don't know how to broach it just yet, it still can be a strength, right? It still can say, like, you came to me with this issue and you're a part of my community or my family, and so I'm going to serve you in whichever way that I can. I think that could be a beautiful strength that crosses over into serving the mental health needs of our people. The first thing that came to my mind when I heard Compartiendo Esperanza was really like a return to roots. To me, there is evidence for hope, and there's reason for hope. And so being reminded of that and being reminded of who we are and reminding our young people of who they are and of who their parents and grandparents have been, it's about just making sure that isn't lost on them, right? Because it can be easy to feel hopeless. It can be easy to feel like things are against me and this is not going to work and here are all the reasons it won't work. But we have so much more reason to know that it will work, and we can do things even when they're difficult. We can do hard things, and that's what hope is about, right? Looking forward and saying, here's what we can do, here's where we can go.
Hello, my name is Reverend Jason C. Reynolds, and I'm the senior pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church in San Jose, California. I would first like to thank NAMI and all of the contributors to the Pathway to Hope Conference. And special thank you to Don Brown, who is the Director of Cross-Cultural Innovation and the Engagement Task Force. Thank you for coordinating this brave space for us to come together and discuss the impacts of mental health and also find resourcing and ideas to help move us forward. If I would frame this discussion for today, I would call it, everybody needs a little help sometimes. Some of you are familiar with Dean Martin, and he has this amazing song, Everybody Loves Somebody Sometimes. Well, with that same thought, I think everybody needs a little help sometimes. I remember the very first time I was personally impacted by mental health. I was in the 4th grade, and I was in a church group. We had been together for about a year or two. We were growing together. Many of us went to different schools, but we would all come back together to Sunday school to play around with one another. And one of the students took his life via suicide. Now, this was a huge challenge for the adult leaders to explain to us children. And I can recall feeling like I should have done something, feeling like I should have seen something, wondering how can we help. I remember the church that I was at brought in therapists to try to help us process this level of grief. And I remember how much I felt impacted. And I also remember that was the first time that suicidal ideations entered into my very own young mind. As we think about the impacts and the ways that everyone needs a little help, I think it is amazingly important for faith communities especially to talk about mental health and to normalize the fact that everyone, no matter your station in life, your position, or what title you may carry, needs help. And that mental wellness is not something that is just given out of the sky, but often something we have to work hard to attain. From my own faith tradition in the Bible, there's a story about a prophet by the name of Elijah. In 1 Kings chapter 19, round about verse 4, after Elijah has done so much work, after we've literally seen God show up in amazing ways on his behalf, either to bring rain in the previous chapter or to stand as a champion in front of so many others who are challenging God's reign. Yet, despite how successful his life and career has been, we find him in chapter 19 saying to God, "Take my life. I've worked hard, I've fought for you, but I'm doing no better than my predecessors." Now, this is mind-blowing to me because I would easily think that success would be a wonderful buffer from the challenges of mental health. That one's success in life and one's success in faith would help us to say that we don't need to worry about the challenges that come with mental health. Yet even in Scripture, scribed centuries and millennia ago, we can see that even success does not insulate one from the challenges that happen in our minds. As we talk about mental health, and especially as we talk about mental disability, oftentimes a good definition for us to think about is a wiring or a rewiring in the brain that affects our mood, our thoughts, and our emotions. And just as I see Elijah here, he's having a break, dealing with thoughts of suicide, moments of depression, and seeming isolation. So faith communities often offer a great opportunity for us to work through some of these challenges. But we have to be resourced. First, when we talk about the fact that this happens to everyone, from leaders all the way to pew members or individuals that are lightly connected, this allows individuals who are in need of resources to speak up. And I want to make sure that people feel comfortable in saying that I am dealing with a mental health issue. The pandemic has proven, it has shown that not only has mental health risen, but in certain communities, it has risen higher than others. And one of the statistics that is mind-blowing is that teenage girls have grown 51% in suicide attempts during the pandemic. 51% increase in young people trying to take their lives as they try to make sense of a world that does not make sense. Everybody needs a little help sometimes. And so if we can come together, if we can connect to resources, we have an opportunity to change trajectory. I want to say this for leaders. Many of you know that in the pandemic, we have seen a decrease in how effective leadership has been, not just in one small caveat in our world, but all over. We've seen amazing leaders rise up, but this has been a challenging time. Burnout has been communicated more than we've seen ever. We've seen the great exodus as people have walked away from high-paying jobs because we just cannot take it. And the same is true in faith communities, that we've always seen that there's this constant movement of leaders out of leadership positions because of the weight of what we carry. Now, some of this is due to an excessive individualism that permeates American society, that we feel the go it alone mantra is the best way to live. And don't get me wrong, I love the great stories. I love the movies where we celebrate the individual accolades and accomplishments of one person. But if we're honest, if we can be truthful, most of the biggest benefits, most of the largest transformations, most of the things that we have seen have never been associated to one person. There's always been collaboration. There have been communities and organizations and leaders from multiple stripes of life who've come together to work together. And this is what I want to offer, because everybody needs a little help sometimes. Collaboration is hugely key, especially as we deal with some of the biggest challenges our world has ever seen. Whether they're the challenges that happen with race in America, and how that impacts communities and what they're doing and or not doing to deal with it. The pandemic and the way that every person now has become a potential threat in our lives because we don't know if they're COVID positive or not. The way that we have been isolated, forced to be by ourselves, and sometimes that's not healthy or helpful. And as we've seen the economy do all kind of crazy things, resourcing not always available, political instability, there is need for multiple people and multiple groups to work together. Building off the same story that I mentioned earlier, Elijah, later on in the same chapter, he goes and has a conversation with God, and his main frustration and gripe is, I'm all alone. I am by myself. I have been doing all of these amazing things, but since I've been doing them by myself, they feel overwhelming. So I want to encourage. Who are the collaborators that you are connected with? What other nonprofits, for-profits, government agencies, other faith communities are you working with to help you deal with the challenges of the time? If we're talking about mental health, and I know the way that this impacts our community, sometimes I wish that I had the crisis intervention team that I could go send out to go help a family. I wish that we had housing available that could help people find an immediate place to stay. I wish we would have the substance abuse necessary that helps people detox so that they can be in a better place. But we don't have all of those resources. In fact, we couldn't do it if we tried. We get overwhelmed just with having to talk to people at times and trying to point them to the right resources. But the gift is, once we know that there is a wellness center not far away, or we know the locations where food can be distributed and the times that they can be distributed, we know where somebody could go and sober up. Or we have the number that helps individuals get into housing, even if temporary, just to give them a moment of respite as they continue to try to figure out what to do next in life. And we also have the resources to help our children recognize that everything that you're dealing with, you don't have to go alone. That you don't have to feel like you need to be perfect for our benefit, but that you can be honest. And that we can point you to the therapist, that we can point you to the school psychologist, but we also can point you to other people of faith who are walking the same way. And so let me give you a story. One of our members was challenged greatly with a mental health crisis. It had gotten so bad that the state had to step in and take her children away. She was quickly devolving. Things were falling apart. And as much as we wanted to pray with and for her, as much as we wanted to support her in that way, we knew that that was not enough. And so she was able to connect with a local mental health provider. Not only did they pair her with therapists and psychologists, but they also were able to connect her into opportunities for job training. They were able to help her understand what it was that she was working with. And alongside that, to show how her church and faith community could come alongside and continue to encourage her. It was amazing. It wasn't quick. It didn't turn around in a month. But 2 years later, she wrote us a note thanking us for the work that we had done. She became a spokesman for this particular health facility. And we see her life. We see her holding gainful employment, her children back in her care. We see her with hope moving forward. And we know that this came because we had the right collaborations. She was able to get plugged into the right resources. We were able to recognize our personal and collective limitations, but we also saw how God could work through all of these things working together. Now, that didn't always make me feel good. There were moments where I wish we could have personally done more. But when I saw her later, when I read her thank you, when I saw her children flourishing, I knew that this should be offered for so many others. You know, the gift is that we have so much information at our fingertips. Social media opens up so much. It becomes so available for us. But also with that availability comes all of the ways that we process that information, which sometimes make it even more difficult. Our children now are consistently connected to be bullied or to see life that they want to be, to deal with body shaming, to deal with thoughts about who they are, trying to understand their self and sexuality. All of these things are happening, and they don't just stop once they leave school. Sometimes they increase. So giving our kids the proper mechanisms, the proper support, and the collaborative work that we can do together helps. Our church has been benefited, and I'm in the process now of working with one of our largest mental health providers in our county, of bringing faith into many of their residential services. Because as we talk about mental wellness, it's not just one aspect. It's not just medication. It is not just your psychiatrist or your therapist, but we've come to know that groups of support and faith sit at the center, a group of people letting you know that you are still part of us, that we are still walking together with you, that we are trusting and believing God with you, helps individuals move forward. And so collaboration is huge. How we get into, how we work together, how we make sure that people have the resources that are available, and then how we advocate for the resources that need to be available. So collaboration, because everybody needs a little help sometimes. And then the other thing that I want to lift up is a healthy rhythm of rest. This past year, I got a chance, actually not this year, but last year, I got a chance to go on sabbatical. And it was a gift to me. I was able to get it funded. And what sabbatical showed me was how much I'm constantly running and moving without a healthy rhythm of rest. And every time you don't get, to take weeks or months away, right? But how do we develop space where we turn televisions off, where we turn work off, where we turn life down just a bit to recoup, to be restored, to be re-energized so that we can continue to move forward? Now, I believe that faith communities have a special place in the healing of our nation. I believe churches, mosques, temples, all of you can come together and really model what it means to be a group united instead of divided. But it also comes when we can get the proper rest, when we can collaborate with other people, and when we can normalize the conversations that need to happen regarding mental health. I'm excited because conversations like this bring the hope that we need. So you have pathways to hope. There's hope for the collaborations that you can make, and I hope that you seek those who are already doing the work. Find those that are helping. Connect with NAMI and see how you can get involved in FaithNet and find other faith communities that can help you. I believe that we can be okay to acknowledge that we too have faith needs. That it doesn't matter your success, it doesn't matter your position, it doesn't matter your title, but that when you need help, you can get that help. That for us, in my faith tradition, we say Jesus and therapy. And for you, it might be whatever and therapy, whatever your whatever is, and the therapy can help you see straight. Grab it. It's necessary. And make sure that you rest, that you model rhythms of rest, that we can communicate to the world all around us that you're not just how productive you are, you're not just how much success you have, you're not just your utility. Because oftentimes that's the way that capitalism works, right? We're only as good as our utility. But the truth is whether you have utility or not, you have value. And when we can come together like that, then even those who are struggling with mental health, even when we are struggling with mental health, we can find purpose, we can find meaning, and we can move forward. It has been a pleasure being here with you today. I hope that you are inspired to get more work done. And I hope that you will get just a little bit of help from all the resources that are available to you. God bless you. And hopefully we'll get a chance to partner together.
Good morning. I want to welcome everybody to our panel today, Bridges to Care, Outcomes After Training. My name is Doug Beach, and I'm the chairperson for Pathways to Hope in San Antonio. And I want to start by telling you about Bridges to Care San Antonio and how we got started. And then Reverend Ron Blue and her group will talk about how her community has been impacted by Bridges to Care. About 5 years ago, I was able to visit with a group in St. Louis called Bridges to Care. It was a grassroots organization made up originally of about 10 churches in North St. Louis that had been impacted by the Ferguson, Missouri riots after Michael Brown was shot to death. The events of that week traumatized their community and left them wondering how could they help each other heal and move forward. Their answer was Bridges to Care. It was formed by gathering churches in the same vicinity in Ferguson, and they took it upon themselves to work together to educate their own members about mental health issues and to help direct them to resources. And today, after 7 years, that movement has expanded to 7 cohorts of 10 churches each, all organized in close proximity to their cohort members. Bridges to Care St. Louis has been supported by the Behavioral Health Network, made up of mental health providers and community groups in St. Louis. I was struck by how engaged the community members were in helping their own neighbors and family members. They had been given the tools to work with, and it was clear they were having an impact. It was a grassroots movement of friends helping friends and neighbors. I returned to San Antonio and began asking if this was a model that might work in our community. Over the next several years, we continued to learn more and to listen to the people from St. Louis who had begun this movement. In 2019, we invited the director from Bridges to Care St. Louis to present at that year's Pathways to Hope conference. And the following year, we held a networking session to ask our community members if they wanted to be part of Bridges to Care San Antonio. And the answer was a resounding yes. Now, almost 2 years down the road, we've launched Bridges to Care San Antonio by working in congregational groups in close proximity to one another, educating and supporting wellness champions within their congregations. They have 6 core trainings: becoming a trauma-informed congregation, NAMI Family and Friends, suicide prevention, building a mental health program, finding mental health resources, and companionship. We now have over 60 congregations and over 600 wellness champions in just under 2 years. And now I want to introduce Reverend Ron Blue from Family Life International Ministries, who's going to introduce you to members of her cohort who have gone through Bridges to Care. And they're going to tell you how Bridges to Care has impacted them. Veron?
Thanks to everyone for joining us today. The folks in this discussion today are part of the RAFA cohort team, which is 8 churches that have connected together to address and erase the stigma, silence, and shame of mental illness in our homes, our families, our churches, and definitely in our communities. So we have Billy Lavender, and we have Pastor Carolyn White, and Dr. Andy Gray, Nikita Fox, and Dr. Sunita Punjabi. And Dr. Andy is our lead therapist, and these are all key players in the RAFA cohort. Dr. Sunita is a neuroscientist and psychologist, and is also a friend of the RAFA cohort. Now, our goal today is to share a little of our journey with you about how Bridges to Care changed our lives personally, and as a result, our families, our churches, and our communities. So I know you guys are excited. So welcome. We're going to have a great time today. Let's dig in. So my very first question to y'all is, how has this training impacted your life? Pastor Carolyn?
It has impacted my life greatly. It has caused me to be an advocate for people who have been affected and affected by mental health issues and did not have a voice previously to express what they were experiencing. I found myself becoming that voice for them. I have had situations after the training when I've been able to act as a champion, as a companion, as a resource provider for people who didn't know where to get services. I've also been an advocate. I've had to speak in school for children that had mental illness issues. I've had to stand up for my family at times and do educational things for them about mental illness.
That's great. What about you, Dr. Andy? How has this training impacted you?
That's a great question, Pastor V. And I think that my answer to that is going to be, it has really helped us to be, as clinicians, to be kind of a force multiplier. It's enabled us to be able to take the information that we have learned and that is abundant and be able to provide it to others. And it gives us also the ability to have a common working vocabulary. A lot of the problems that we see is sometimes people don't know how to express what's really hurting or what's needed.
Right.
And so having these classes, it gives us this common working vocabulary and the ability to meet our community needs in a way that we really haven't been able to do so before.
Absolutely. What about you, Nikita?
Hi. Yes, that's a great question. This training has given me the language and the tools to approach difficult situations and assist people that I cross paths with on their personal journeys to mental wellness. My goal is to apply these skills that I've acquired to detect when someone needs a partner while navigating the process of overcoming the effects of traumatic experiences and also being a living example of what overcoming looks like.
Absolutely. I love that. What about you, Billy? What has happened since you've taken the training? How did it impact your life?
Well, the training that I've received has helped me to recognize things in people that I, encounter every day. I can apply the training to help people that I come in contact, wherever I go, and it makes me more aware of people. And you become more sensitive. You take notice of people and the demeanor, and it just you're better equipped to help people.
That is also true as for me. Knowing the language and the signs of mental health has really made me a better pastor, a better wife, a better mother, a better friend. It's made me a different person, and so now I listen with my heart. Dr. Sunita has taught us about reflective listening. And so now I listen with my heart instead of my head. And I'm so much more empathetic and compassionate. So what was a surprising outcome of the training for you personally? Because for me, there was a surprise outcome I did not expect. Did you guys experience a surprising outcome of the training? Anybody? Nikita, what about you?
I would have to say the surprising outcome for me was during the training, there were things that I had yet to unpack about myself. And I feel like as I get to know myself better, and I'm more aware of things that I may have faced that the training brought a light to, it would help me to also see that in others.
Oh, wow. That's great. What about you, Pastor Carolyn?
I was surprised to see after I got the training how many people I could identify that had some type of emotional illness and mental illness that was undiagnosed, that they weren't even aware of. But knowing some of the pathology and knowing some of the psychology, I could look at them and I could see where they had issues and things of that nature. And I was surprised that training had prepared me to even be that aware. So it brought a new awareness to me. And just like Nikita said, it also helped me during the training to look at some issues in my life emotionally where I hadn't done the self-care myself, where I needed to be able to look at some things, where there had been some residue of trauma even in my own life.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. And Billy, what about you? What was surprising about some of the outcomes for you?
Well, one of the things I think about, it didn't take very long after the training, or even in some regards during the training, where I had opportunity. In particular, one of my coworkers he appeared to be having a rough day one day, and it was just some things that I saw and I recognized from the training that I had to ask him, can I talk to you, and just hear him out and see where he was at in his head, and he seemed distraught and very just distracted, and so we had conversation, and I found myself from the training asking him the question I probably would have never done before. And I asked him, was he thinking about harming himself? And he said no, but because of how his demeanor was and how he was, going about that day, I just knew that I had to help him in some form or fashion to get to seek someone professionally. So I reached out to you that day, and we were able to get him a session with Dr. Andy, and he's doing great now. I talk to him often, encouraging him, and I know this training has definitely helped me to be able to recognize and be more effective in that way.
Great, great. I know we have stories upon stories of how this training has helped us to help others with their lives and how lives have been saved. I mean, we have amazing stories and outcomes of this training. Dr. Sunita, I know I have you in hold, but I'm getting to you in just a minute. Dr. Andy, what about you? What was the surprising outcome of the training for you?
I think a surprising outcome for me, really, I guess it was really reinforced something that I had seen, is that how great the need and how few the resources. And so as we went through the process, we really learned that there was a real need for this training in our community. Sometimes it's a long wait to get in to see a therapist. So I think with these tools, it enables us to meet those needs quicker. So surprising, not so much, but it did reinforce something that we already knew, and just how great the need and how few the resources. And again, the program helps put those resources at hand and available for us.
Absolutely. And I love in the Rafa cohort, we actually assembled our own network. Dr. Sunita is a part of that, you, Dr. Andy, where we take care of the needs of the folks in our cohort and their families. And we respond to them within 15 minutes, 2 hours. They get a call and they get someone to talk to them. That is amazing stuff. As far as I am concerned, I think it transformed me. It changed me into a totally different person. I'm more tolerant and patient. And because I understand it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And so that was a game changer for me. So I look at everyone now, when someone's behavior is not in line, my first thought is, I wonder what happened. Can I help? Can I help talk to them? Can I help walk them through the trauma? And that education has just saved all of our relationships, so many relationships. And Dr. Sunita, I wanted to talk with you because although you're not a wellness champion, you have been a part of the Rafa team from the inception. Tell us what drew you to the work that we were doing as a cohort. And then we talked the other day about outcomes, about some of the interesting outcomes of your relationship with us. So go ahead and have at it.
I'll tell you, I wanted to be a part of this because every time Pastor Blue's done anything, God's behind it. So I joined and wanted to be part of this because I wanted to see what Pastor Blue was up to. But what was surprising is what I learned by being affiliated with this group one night. And I think this is a good time, Pastor, for me to talk about the young girl.
Yeah.
I was volunteering, I was doing it at first. I was consumed by my pastor who told me to do something. And I saw some really nice people, and I see Pastor Blue trying really hard. But what I'm about to tell you was life-changing for me in two different ways. But That night we had a young girl that was told by someone else. So please understand, in another state, someone told this wife of an active duty army about this call
Trauma
that was
talk.
going to
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
So she got on Trauma Talk with us, and that night we had no idea. She was just sitting there. I started asking some questions, and we found out that this wife was so alone. She was so anxious. She would go to the emergency room across the street from her apartment, sit there so she wasn't alone. And I said, okay. I got a few more things out of her that indicated I knew with my training, I knew that she should not be left alone. Was a matter of days where she might be able to take some other actions. Right away, I ended up giving her a call. I spoke with her briefly, and I can't do it all. So I called Pastor, or Pastor called me. We checked in with each other to follow up on how's she doing. Pastor got on it, got 2 or 3 other girls that were able to follow up with her and walk her through the next steps of getting stable and connecting to some additional help. A couple of things happened. Someone out there got trained, some other state, and told someone else, who probably told someone who got this young mother on the call. Then I'm there to speak to her, but more importantly, because I tell you, psychologists right now, guys, we can't handle what's going on in our world. And for me that night, it was so cool. I handed the baton to Pastor, and Pastor handed it, and one person had to take all the burden. I think right now, with what's going on in our world, we need to have more of this, because by ourselves, it's called compassion fatigue. Right now, compassion fatigue it's diagnosed 6 out of every 10 caregivers or first responders or police officers are diagnosed with compassion fatigue. And if you guys can do something like this and help someone like us, it's not just that. There was other events. I had a patient come into my office, and I knew that he needed to plug in. I knew he needed something that was faith-based. I knew he needed to be around loving people. So I quickly gave him, I knew Pastor was having a bro talk or a men's conference that morning. And I said, go there and text me a smiley face when you get there. And then I called Pastor. I said, okay, someone's coming, and will you please let me know when he gets there? To be able to pass the baton, that is priceless. I mean, you can't put a tag on that. And right now, as a person that's trying to hold people together, to know there's a community of people that can help me stay together, that there's resources, it's renewed my faith even in other people, and that we all want to serve. At our core level, we want to know we're making a difference, and it's an honor to be part of this group.
Yeah. It definitely takes a village. Mental health is personal. It takes a person to person, one-on-one, where you take the time to know someone. We talked about a incident, Dr. Sini, that someone we've been working with for about a year. You, myself, Dr. Andy, Billy, my husband, the church. It takes a whole village. And we watched someone who was a year ago, Dr. Sunita, you had diagnosed him as, was it schizophrenia? And we have watched, yes. And now we have watched him in a year with the men's group, Billy, and Dr. Andy counseling, and you're doing the brain work on him. And we have watched him, his life. He is now re-enrolled at Incarnate Word to get his master's degree. I mean, that's in 1 year. He owns a home, he owns a car, his life. You would never even think that a year ago he was suicidal. That is the power of community. That's what it takes for all of us working together. And this cohort, we do that so well. Dr. Andy is our lead therapist. So when someone calls, we send everyone to Dr. Andy, and Dr. Andy talks with them and he says, well, okay, I think you need to see so-and-so. And he recommends who should see it. But we call Dr. Andy, well, what do I do? I'm walking with this person. What should I do? And so it really requires a village. No one person can do this work by themselves. It takes all of us are wellness champions. And you're right, Dr. Sunita. We assigned 4 wellness champions to that young lady, and one person was assigned to call her every single day. And they called her every day until... Yes, go
Do you
ahead.
remember we were at your church and I had invited some people, patients of mine, and I went to Dr. Gray and I said, okay, I think this one's struggling. And we kind of kept an eye on that one person, and you could feel, and then your prayer team came around her too. And I was just so grateful.
Yeah, it's amazing. It takes all of us. And as you said, no one person can do it alone. We all have to do our part in nurturing and restoring and helping folks to walk through. So, immediately after the training, Rafa created platforms. We realized we had to get this information out, Nikita. We had to tell people about all the stuff that we have learned in this training, what's happening with their families. So Carolyn, we made attempts, we created platforms to educate our community. So Carolyn, do you want to talk a little bit about Trauma Talk? And Billy, you can talk about Bro Talk. And Dr. Sunita, you can talk about Sisters. And Andy, you can talk about the grief and loss and the workshops we do and all of that stuff, because all those were platforms. Carolyn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had a group for women in the inner city and our inner city that we had called Trauma Talk. And in Trauma Talk, it was a place, as Pastor Veron was talking about, you have to be vulnerable and be able to open up and have a safe haven where you can talk about your mental and emotional support. And so Trauma Talk gave that such platform. And we discussed things with women in our community, such as spousal abuse, domestic violence. We had topics such as ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. We talked about grief support. We talked about a myriad of topics that we had support for the women on the call. We gave them a safe place to be vulnerable and share openly. And also, even after each session, if there was some residual help that you needed, we offered that. We had therapists and wellness champions that were on the call. We even had prayer warriors on the call that if you needed prayer and assistance, because we wanted to make sure we took care of the issues holistically, that you also was able to have someone that was a psychologist or a psychiatrist to treat you, and also to have someone that would pray for you if you had also some spiritual issues. So we tried to deal with the whole person to restore them back to health and healing.
Absolutely. I think that one of the biggest change I saw in all of us was that before the training, we were all prone to just pray for people. I'll pray.
Absolutely.
And that will be the end of it. But now we not only pray for you, but we can help you to get to help. We can talk to Dr. Andy. We can, there are counselors you can talk to. So that has made a tremendous difference in our churches, in our families. We not only pray for each other, but we listen to each other. So Billy, can you talk a little bit about Bro Talk and what's happening with the men?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so Bro Talk it's a great space. It's an opportunity for men to talk about the things that affect them. And Dr. Andy and Bishop Blue, they put together some topics that we talk about that really men are reluctant to share and talk about otherwise. And so we have Bro Talk on the second and fourth Monday each month. And many people that are on this Zoom, they share their experiences, and we give encouragement to one another. The topics that are covered in these Zoom sessions are very informative, and men know that that there are people that are willing to walk with them and to help them with their issues. It's a safe space, and it's really made an impact in individuals' lives. And we had a Bro Talk Men's live event that Dr. Sunita was talking about. It was great. It was an awesome time. We had these when the men came out, we had these breakout. We had a great breakfast, so we got to fill our bellies, and we had these breakout sessions that were really good, and guys just absorbed this information. They were really they were really vested in learning more about themselves and the issues that we deal with, and we came away with. We got these resources and tools to help, people in their journey. So it was, Bro Talk is just a great space for guys to really get in tune with themselves and to get that healing and restoration that they need.
Great. Andy, would you like to tell us about the community workshops and the mental health conference that we had? That would be great.
Yeah. So one of the other things that we've done is we started doing some community workshops where we really worked with grief and loss. And we did a seminar, we did a conference on grief and loss to help people work through their grief and loss, identify those issues, and get them hooked up with a specialist with grief and loss if they needed to do that as well. We also did, and one of our first ones was really the suicide prevention, suicide watch. That was a really great training as well, because we want to try to make an impact on our community and understanding that sometimes things get tough for individuals. And so we want to give them the tools to let them know suicide is not the way out, that you can find help, and we're here to help you. The conferences that we've had, over 300 people attended the Zoom conference, Darkness and Spiritual Mental Conference, Spiritual Darkness and Mental Health Conference. It was a lot. There was a lot of people there. Try to be able to sow back into our community and be able to reach into our community and help meet the needs that are there. That's what Rafa is out for. That's what we're trying to do, the best at our capability.
Absolutely. And Dr. Sunita, you're on just about every month with our sisters where we deal with personal mental health issues with women that are unique to women. And we have learned so much from you over the past year, and it's just amazing. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, it was such a great space, women, and giving each other permission to share. When one woman would share, all of a sudden we had all these other stories that came out. And I think it built confidence. It allowed women to know I'm not alone, which is such an important message right now, especially with us coming through isolation and the increasing rates of depression and anxiety. For these women to have a forum where it was safe, they could open up, and they were in the convenience of their own home. So it just, I can't explain it. The energy and the caring that came through, the space it created for women to heal. We taught skills. We didn't just share stories. We did trainings on specific skills. How do we recognize suicidal ideology? What do we do about next? Active listening. We had so much fun with active listening when women were learning how to talk to each other, and they could use that skill with their children and with their husbands. So I learned more, I think, than I taught as I watched these women talk to each other and open up and bear their, be so real and raw with each other over camera. I mean, we weren't even live. We were over camera, but the human spirit needed that. And so it was such a privilege to be part of that. And I learned so much from all of the women.
Yeah, I think really that's so great, Dr. Nita. We are no longer intimidated by mental illness because we have been educated. And it's amazing how I am no longer scared if someone says to me, I'm hearing voices. I'm not scared, and I'm not scared to talk to you about it. And so that's the intimidation factor has been totally eliminated, because now we are educated, we have knowledge, we can have conversation because we have the language, we can understand signs and symptoms, we know what they mean. So this is totally, we're totally liberated in the area of mental health. Nikita, I know for you, the training has personally empowered you to help people in your family, your church, and your community. Can you tell us, take a minute or so and just tell us what that is about?
Absolutely. You actually just kind of like segue right into what I was going to say about the newfound confidence and the boldness that I now have when approaching situations. You know, not necessarily ones that have, you know, been already set up, but just in everyday scenarios, you know, on my job, at my church, people I meet, you know, as I'm, you know, going about my day. And so I now understand the value of having that knowledge and having those resources to fall back on. I have a deeper empathy, I would say, for people that are experiencing mental health challenges. And my desire is to provide some kind of hope for someone who needs a glimmer of light when they're in a dark space. I definitely feel equipped to be a companion and provide a safe space for people who just want to be vulnerable and express how they really feel and what they're thinking. So yeah, empowered for sure. And also I love how I get to be a part of sharing in the healing and wholeness of not only my family, but my church and my community for sure.
Oh, that is so amazing. And I think we could all say, all echo that. One of the things I love about Bridges to Care is their continued training. They didn't just train us for the 20 hours and that was it. They continue to train. They continue to help. I know most of you that are listening to us, you know of Uvalde and how what happened here, that was the tragedy that occurred. Well, within weeks, Bridges to Care had gotten a training. Dr. Andy put together a training, and he was able to do that for all the wellness champions. And so, Dr. Andy, I know you're doing something great with rapid response training. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you are doing in that arena?
Yeah, thanks, Pastor V. So after what happened in Uvalde, I was talking with Pastor V, and I really was concerned about the pastors in other places. Maybe they don't have enough staff to meet an influx of people that would have been affected by some kind of natural disaster or other tragedy. And so we began to put together a program to help train churches to be first responders, to be able to help train people within the churches or our faith centers, doesn't have to be a church, it can be any other congregation, to be able to go out and meet the needs of their community and help other faith communities that may be trying to meet the needs there of people coming in and needing help and needing prayer and how to deal with the aftermath of a crisis. And so we've really put that together to try to make an impact again in our community, to reach out. That's what we try to do. We want to be able to go out. We talked about, I said this earlier, about being, kind of a special forces, being able to go out and be force multipliers. And that's what we're trying to do, is to be able to meet the needs and go out and empower others to be able to make a positive impact on their community with the tools that we've been given and springboard off of the trainings and things that we've learned from the Bridges to Care courses.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to close in a little bit, but before we do, I want to give everyone 30 seconds to just share one takeaway about Bridges to Care. Just one nugget that will help everyone that's listening to us today in this panel. Nikita, you want to go first? Andy, you want to go first?
I'm sorry, Pastor. You
told me that it was the ultimate. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's ultimate pre-crisis. So the training that we're getting through Bridges to Care is the ultimate pre-crisis. We talk about that as we go through the Congregational Rapid Response Team, is that this is the ultimate pre-crisis intervention. So get into the Bridges to Care program, take the trainings, and be able to impact not just your immediate family and everything, but your church and around you. Ultimate pre-crisis, great place to start.
Nikita.
Dr. Andy took mine. I was going to say being able to be reactive instead of being proactive. The training has definitely, again, just equipped us all with the tools, skills, knowledge, and ability to just get in there and kind of be a forerunner or kind of see things before they get as bad as they could be, to recognize things before they get out of hand, waiting till it explodes or implodes, being able to know what to do beforehand to kind of combat when those things do happen.
Billy, what about you? 30 seconds.
Well, men are talking about their mental health, something that has been taboo. And so it's a great thing to see that happening.
Pastor Carolyn, what about you?
I just want to encourage everybody to be intentional about healing your community. Be aware of those that are hurting around you. Get the training. We're no different than anybody else. We saw a need, and we had the love, and we were intentional in the healing of our community.
That is so true. Dr. Sunita.
I would like everyone to know that I learned that I'm not alone. I have community and people out there in the community, and I can trust the village. There's a lot of doctors and psychologists and first responders that don't trust your village. You can trust your village, and that way you can breathe too. It really does take a village. That's what I want to say, and that's okay, and that's great.
Yeah, mental health. That's so good, Dr. Sunita. Mental health is not transactional; it's all relational. And what this has taught us to do, the training has empowered us and given us the ability now to walk with people, to really care about the people in our families, churches, in our community. Every community should become involved with Bridges to Care, and we can heal our families, our cities, our churches, and our communities, and our country. That's what this training will do for all of us. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Hi, my name is Carolyn White, and I am Bridges to Care.
I'm Patrice Denny, and I am Bridges to Care.
My name is Bishop Blue, and I am Bridges to Care.
My name is Cindy Rogers, and I am Bridges to Care.
My name is Melinda Spruill, and I am Bridges to Care.
I am Marshall Pruitt, and I am Bridges to Care.
My name is April Williams, and I am Bridges to Care.
I am Veron Blue, and we are Bridges to Care.
Sometimes winning doesn't look like winning. Sometimes a win looks an awful lot like loss, looks an awful lot like death. How many times have you been knocked down, tempted to doubt when things don't go the way we think they should? You could imagine the disciples' confusion when Jesus, their king, their champion, he was nailed to a cross and died. He seemingly lost, and they didn't know what to do. What you and I often miss and what the disciples didn't see was that this was all a part of the plan. Jesus said, "No one takes my life, I lay it down." What looked like the greatest loss in history was in fact a paradigm-shifting victory. Jesus rose from the grave, and death couldn't touch him. Sin had lost its power, and he was crowned the champion of all champions, undefeated. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in us, which means his victory over sin is your victory over sin. Your victory over addiction and shame. That thing that you thought was dead in your life, he stands ready to breathe new life. His win is now your win. And this victory reverberates through the centuries, declaring forevermore that he is our champion and he is alive.